Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Surrey Board of Trade. I am Rona Doria of the Surrey Board of Trade. I want to welcome you to today's Digital Impact Learning Lab Small Business Insurance Basics for Entrepreneurs. I wanted to remind you that if you have any questions during this session, please put your questions in the chat function and we will get to them as soon as we can. If we are unable to answer your questions, we will get back to you after the session is over. I acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Quiquetlam, Kakite, Semiahmoo, and the Tuasin First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations peoples who live and work on these territories. The Surrey Board of Trade is Surrey City Building Business Organization, where we support business and bring business into the city. We are here to advocate for you to instigate change at different levels of government and to be your concierge of connections. Check our diversified portfolio at businessinsurrey.com. It is now my pleasure to introduce your facilitators this morning, Daniel Sera, BCAA Senior Field Adjuster, and Patrick Smith, Senior Commercial Insurance Advisor. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Rona. Thank you. And thanks to Surrey Board of Trade. Thanks for having us. And so, just to get right into it, we can get into the first slide here. And yeah, just to start off, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for having us here today to talk about small business insurance basics. And just to note, if you hear Pat or myself say the word commercial insurance, it means the same thing as saying small business insurance. Sometimes we slip into the jargon while we're doing our speech here. And so we know you're all busy entrepreneurs. Today's goal is to give you sort of like a 101 basics on small business insurance, just to maybe clarify some of the concepts and hopefully increase all of your understanding about what commercial insurance does. And by the way, if you have any comments or any questions throughout while Pat and I are talking, please put them in the chat. Even if it's just saying something that you're hoping to learn from today, you can stick that in there, and either we'll address it while we're talking or save it for the end to do some Q&A together. And so anytime you have a thought or a question, just toss it in the chat. And so my name is Dan Sera. I'm the Senior Field Adjuster for the Small Business Claims team at BCAA. And Patrick Smith, is our Senior Insurance Advisor, which means on the sales team. And he's specializing in small business insurance specifically. And before we get too far, just have to give you the disclaimer. So all of the material in this presentation is provided for general information purposes, and it's not intended to constitute legal or insurance advice. Okay, thanks. We have to say that every time. And so we all know building and running a business takes a lot of hard work, and you have all taken chances to establish and to grow your companies. And we want to, at BCAA, we want to help you protect what you've built. And so we launched the small business insurance back in August of 2021 was the launch date. And as just extending our commitment to help people of BC. And so just before we get all the way into the presentation, we don't want to forget some of the little benefits and bonuses we have going on right now. So if you were interested in applying for an insurance policy with BCAA, you can do it all online. We have a portal that walks you through it step by step by asking you questions. And one of the questions is, do you have a promo code? If you have, you'll have a chance to enter that BCAA 50. So you can at least start off on a bit of a discount there with $50 off the premium, but then as well an additional 10% if you are a BCAA member. And I think that's the important part of this slide there, Pat. All right. And so here we are. We're getting into the meat of it now. One thing that we did back when we were just getting ready to launch the small business insurance product was assess the needs. Like, why would we do this? Do we need it? And so at the time, BCAA did the research, and it found out that it's estimated about 25% of small businesses, or just in general BC businesses, are either underinsured or have no insurance at all. And so that's why we started this whole thing. And we're just, as the years have gone by since August of 2021, we've expanded the types of businesses or professions that we can sell the insurance for. And so at the beginning, and still the core of our product market, our target market is landlords, business services, retail, and construction. And so, insurance is one of those things that we should all have, but don't really want to think about, and generally want to get it taken care of as quickly as possible. And so during this needs assessment, found out that just a lot of people on the customer side found it was kind of cumbersome. It was a struggle to find the solid advice, or just to specifically find what insurance products you need. And so it wasn't too convenient. And that's where the online portal that we curated comes in, just to make it easier. It asks you questions step by step, and at any point throughout that process, when you're going through the application, you can always hit chat and talk to someone like Pat, a real live human being sitting in our BCAA offices, ready to answer your questions. And that's the advisor team is available 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. Okay, and let's see here. We're ready for slide 6, which is the start of Pat's part of the presentation.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Smith. I'm a senior commercial advisor with BCAA. Good morning. So October is Small Business Month in BC, and we're here to celebrate it with you. And to celebrate, we're giving away $5,000 to small businesses. And you can see on the screen there, you can enter today at bcaa.com/win5000. So yeah, don't be shy. Get in there and get your entry in there, because $5,000 buys a lot of inventory. All right. So yeah, we're talking about small business insurance, and hopefully I'll convince you by the end of this that why it's beneficial to you, and how it's going to help you. So really, I'd like you to think in terms of insurance as a business partner, like a silent partner. Okay, so it's the most economical partner you're going to have, the cheapest partner you're going to have, and literally cheaper than an employee. And it's really there to protect you. And I'm going to hopefully by the end of this show you why. So I guess when we're talking about insurance for small businesses, we need to really define what the purpose of it is, really. So it's kind of a threefold thing. It's really there to reduce risk, protect your financial uncertainty, and manage accidental loss. And there's different ways that you can set up your business through sole proprietorship, a corporation entity, or a partnership, and some other ones we'll get into. So sole proprietorship really is the most economical way to set up a business. It's really just you operating a business, right? Doesn't require any real legal formation to set it up. Some people have an operating name along, so it could be like Betty Rubble operating as Betty's Consulting Service, or Fred Flintstone operating as Fred's Landscaping. So yeah, do a name search on the operating name, but other than that, yeah, no real legal requirements. You kind of bear all the responsibility for the financial and the liability yourself. And having said that, just to let you know that any lawsuit that does come against you personally under a sole proprietorship. So this is where liability insurance that we're going to talk about comes in. It's crucial and comes in very important on that scale of insurance, okay? Because that's what's going to protect you from those lawsuits. A corporate banner, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but not incredibly more expensive, but a little bit more expensive, and it would require you to have a lawyer or an accountant to set it up for you. But it does have tax advantages, and it is a separate entity in itself. And how that works is that that legal entity under the corporate banner, it can purchase buildings, it can apply for credit, it can hire employees, it can buy inventory, it can literally do everything that you can do as a sole proprietorship, but it's a separate entity. It separates you from that corporate entity. So you'd be essentially an employee of the corporation as a shareholder, as a director and officer. Yeah, like I said, because it is a separate entity, it removes that, it separates that liability and everything from you. So any lawsuits that come against the corporation keeps it away from you. That's the whole intent of it. So yeah, and there's tax advantages. Corporate tax is less than a personal tax. So yeah, explore that and get into seeing what some of the advantages are for you. But as your business evolves, you're probably going to see yourself maybe evolving along with those types of entities as well. A partnership is similar to a sole proprietorship, and that is just more than one of you. It could be 2, 3, 4, 6 of you operating. And typically you'll see this more often with families. You get a whole family working in a grocery store or a small business or farming. They'll have a partnership set up, and they're all kind of owners and participating in the business. And again, may have an operating name as well. Other types are things like LLCs, like a limited liability corporation. And that does require a lawyer to set up it because it's a legal contract versus a separate entity. It's more of just a contract between partners that they agree to operate the business on the contractual terms. And you'll see this more for professionals, like law offices and doctors' offices and engineering offices and that kind of thing, where they'll open a LLC to purchase or to lease a space. And then they'll all participate in that lease. And then they'll hire maybe a front-end staff to run the desk, and they'll hire nurses or other staff to run it, and that will be all under that LLC corp. Whereas the doctors themselves or the lawyers themselves will have their own legal entities operating their own medical services or their legal services. So that's kind of how an LLC works. And other types would be like nonprofit associations or profit associations. So like I said, there's a myriad of ways that you can set up your business and explore them and see what's out there that's going to best represent your type of business services. So small business insurance helps in a variety of different ways. It could be damage caused to others, whereas bodily injury or property claim occurs. Could be theft or damage that occurs to your own business through a peril. And we get asked a lot, okay, what's a peril? So peril is really just an insurance term for an event that's going to cause bodily injury or property damage to others as a result of your business operations. And then, yeah, we could add income loss or, of course, legal expense is going to be in there under the liability. So, yeah, there's lots of varieties that we're going to explore that can benefit your small business there. So coverage will vary depending on, of course, the size and profession that you do and the industry that you're in and the scope of business operations that you're doing. And we can add lots of things in there. You have contents and stock, you can add loss of income, tools and equipment, professional liability for consultants and other professionals out there. And of course, the foundation of it all, what we call the commercial general liability. And this is where we build that policy on as the commercial liability. All right, so commercial liability, like I said, is the foundation of all policies. You're not likely going to get a property-only policy out there. I mean, there are exceptions for like special event type things, but you're not going to get a commercial policy just on property only. It's going to have a commercial general liability, and then you're going to add your property on top of that. And under the commercial general liability, it's very broad and it has many sections in it. But today we're going to focus on what we call the basic sections, and that's the injury sections. That's where most people are most concerned about under the liability. So there's going to be a bodily injury, property injury, there's going to be personal injury, and there'll be advertising injury. And then we have follow forms like medical expenses, which are going to follow the bodily injury side. And then we got legal defense costs, which forms the whole thing. All right, so let's get into it. So under the bodily injury, just like it says, is a physical injury to someone's body. But it's broader than that and includes things like disability, sickness, disease, mental injury, mental shock, even death can be picked up under this section. And bodily injuries occur more often than you think, when you're operating a business. It could be you're a tradesman, someone trips and falls, or it could be you have a home-based business and someone comes to your home and they slip and fall. Just things happen, right? And under the occurrence of your business operations. Property damage or property injury is a physical injury to tangible property of other people. And right here, I want to tell you that commercial general liability is third-party damage. So any bodily injury, it occurs to third party, not yourself. There's WorkSafe BC that will cover you if you're injured on the job. Property damage, the same thing. We get asked, does it cover my property if my property gets damaged? It does, but not under this section. We would add property coverage to protect your property, but under the general liability, it's always protecting third parties. Yeah, property damage. So yeah, you could be an arborist out there and working on someone's backyard, cutting down some trees or pruning tree branches, and then boom, it falls over and hits the neighbor's roof, damages his roof line, or maybe damages his gutters, or his HVAC system gets crushed. So yeah, you never know, things happen, and this section will pay for that. Medical expenses, which I said like follows the bodily injury section, is what we call incidental medical. So it has a lower limit, and it's really just there to pick up incidental accidents, like trip and falls and that sort of thing. So let's pretend that someone, came to your home-based business, and again, they slipped on your sidewalk, or it was icy or something like that, and they broke their leg, and you would call an ambulance. So usually 2 or 3 show up, and then they're going to ding you $350, and then you're going to call. They're going to take you to the hospital, and there's going to be attending physician fees. There's going to be maybe X-rays, or maybe there's going to be blood work that has to be done, or that kind of thing, or maybe dental work has to be done. They broke their teeth. So yeah, call it in. We'll pay for it under this section, and it's not triggered without any legal action and regardless of fault. So, and it'll pay for like X-rays, dental, professional nursing, even funeral expenses we picked up under this section. Personal injury, unlike bodily injury, it's more of a mental injury. It's applied more to social wrongs like humiliation or discrimination or defamation of character or reputation. And it also includes things like, for you landlords out there, a wrongful dismissal or wrongful entry. It could pick up things like false arrest, detention, imprisonment, or malicious prosecution under this personal injury section. Advertising injury. Now, this is kind of a hot spot, compared to 10 years ago or even further. Social media just wasn't that well known, but today social media is just everywhere, and I don't know a small business that doesn't use some form of social media to advertise nowadays, and because it's out there and it's hard to take back, you got to be even more vigilant in what you do for your advertising. So I'm going to read the definition to you for social media because it's pretty broad. So social media broadly means any platform or website or application that permits users to share information and content or participate in social networking. And social media includes things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, messaging platforms and communities like WhatsApp, Reddit, and other messaging apps, blogs and video sharing platforms like YouTube and Zoom and Teams, and other things like interactive electronic forms such as electronic newsletters, online forums, chat rooms, message boards, and webinars. Yeah, you got to be careful. Like I said, you don't want to be using other people's advertising in your advertising. And it may not be you who's doing the advertising. It might be your brother-in-law or sister-in-law or your child doing it, or your spouse or your employee. So yeah, it's like we have some students out there that say, "Hey, Dad, I've been on watching some social media ads for small businesses, and this guy's doing exactly what you're doing, and he's getting like 40 hits a minute. So I think we should mirror that and just get you some business. So you do, and 30 days you're slapped with an infringement lawsuit. So yeah, things like trademark, slogans, intellectual property, images, symbols, designs, those kind of things, you got to be careful and just double check what you're using and do a little bit of searching and before you go ahead and do that. But it's there to protect you, and this is a very important section of the commercial general liability for small businesses. And legal defense costs. This is my number one thing when I'm talking about commercial general liability to small businesses. And people saying, why do I need business insurance? And I go, this is why. Okay. If you take into consideration what it costs to hire a lawyer to defend a claim nowadays, it's insane. And it can last for years. So here's my pitch, okay? You can spend $1,000 an hour for a defense attorney, and you're gonna have to put down a huge retainer usually to get them to work for you. Or you can spend $1,000 a year and get a commercial general liability policy and have all those things covered under the legal defense in the commercial liability. So now that you got the commercial liability in place, we could add the property section there. So it can be anything usual to your business. It could be stock and contents if you're a retailer or you're in an office. It could be all your electronic gadgets if you're working at home or in an office. It could be buildings, or if you own, rental condos, or you own a space for your commercial in a condominium there for you landlords. Could be property of others if you're working on other people's property, tools and equipment if you're a contractor out there, and and these things can be mobile or fixed locations. So if you're a retailer, like a brick and mortar shop, your contents would be fixed at that location. We do that way. Or if you're traveling around, going from place to place as part of your business, like consultants or contractors, then we could do a mobile as well. We call a floater. Your equipment goes with you and it just floats around for wherever you are. And then there's a specialty coverage section we can add in there. So for professionals, it would be like professional liability, like errors and omissions. It could be D&O, directors and officers coverage. It could be surety and bonding. So yeah, whatever is usual to your business. If there's a specialty section that we need to add in there, once we review it, then we could add that in there as well. So let's get into some of the reasons why you may need business insurance, okay? So if your business were to cause damage to a third party, are you protected against a potential lawsuit? Yeah, like I said, specifically if you're like a sole proprietorship, you don't want to take that chance because any lawsuit, again, comes against you personally, and they're going after your personal assets. They're going after your RSPs, they're going after your savings, they're going after everything you own. Like I said, insurance policies are the best selling partner you're going to have and the most economical one. It's a lot cheaper to get a commercial liability policy than to have to get a defense attorney and go through all that. Do you operate a business out of your commercial space, like a shop or garage or warehouse or office? Yeah. So yeah, if you're renting a space, the landlord may dictate what you need under that lease agreement, that you have to have a certain amount of contents or what type of contents, or a certain amount of liability. It could be 1 million, could be 5 million. Yeah, and whatever's usual to your, like I said, your business. If you're in an office, we can add all that contents and in there as well. Do you have equipment or tools or inventory that's too expensive to replace? Yeah, you're not talking $2,000 or $3,000 that maybe you can out of pocket those things, but as you grow, you may have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory and machinery and equipment that you just can't out of pocket. Again, insurance becomes the most economical way to protect those assets and protect your business and your future growth and your future retirement, right? So the whole purpose of going into business was to create an income and a future for yourself. So think about that silent partner. Would an equipment breakdown significantly impact your ability to do business? Not too many years ago, back in the day, I had a hotel that suffered a business interruption through someone hit a power pole outside on the street downtown, and it knocked all their sophisticated phone systems out, and they had all the computers surged and it knocked out their computers. So Yeah, they couldn't operate business, and they did have business interruption coverage through a boiler machinery policy and loss of income in there. So they were shut down for over a week and they lost a lot of business. But because they had the equipment breakdown and because they had the loss of income in there, they were able to recover and get back in business quickly. And yeah, it's saved them a lot of money. So if your business had to shut down unexpectedly, would you have the adequate savings to support yourself? Yeah, and not all of us have a big fat bank account, and if you were to suffer a peril like a fire or a theft or a hailstorm or a flood or a sewer backup, something like that, or a sprinkler system went off and now you can't operate for a few months, yeah, you could add that loss of income coverage in there and protect all your assets and equipment and contents to make sure that you're back in business as quick as possible. Do you collect customers' information? Yeah, some of that information is highly sensitive, and you can get standalone cyber policy. Most true cyber policies that include legal defense costs are done through specialty insurers. In North America, most commercial general liability policies, also known as CGLs, they do include a little bit of cyber expense coverage, but it doesn't include any defense costs. So if you're brought into a lawsuit because of something happened to that information that got out of the wrong hands, you would want to choose cyber policy. Are clients asking to see proof of insurance? Yeah, all the time. Reputable companies want to deal with other reputable companies. Contractors, we get asked a lot for certificates of insurance so they can give to their clients because they've been asked for proof of liability. Consultants the same. They're not allowed to get on certain spaces because they don't have proof of liability. So we issue a certificate and that's their proof of liability. So yeah, more and more people now who want to deal with small businesses want to see that they are insured and that they're reputable. And if something happens that, there's protection. Does your business goals include future growth? Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's the whole purpose of going in a small business, right? Is to create an income, create a future, maybe a retirement, or pass that legacy on to your children and keep it going from generation to generation. Do you run your business out of a home? Back in the day, just like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you could get these small business packages that were included in your home insurance. And more now that they've moved away from that and they're pushing you into a commercial policy standalone. And the reason for that is because home insurance under the personal liability just wasn't meant to pick up commercial exposures. You've seen how broad a commercial policy is, advertising injury and personal injury and defense costs. Those things weren't meant to be picked up under a home insurance. So if you are one of those old home packages, you're likely going to see yourself grandfathered over to a commercial policy just to have better protection. And knock on wood, that you're not going to have to suffer a peril and suffer a claim. But it's good to know that you have a reputable company like BCAA that's going to protect you and stand behind you during that time of loss. And I can't think of anybody better than our own Daniel Sera there to explain the whole claims process and show how we protect you. All right, Dan, over to you.
Yes. Thanks, Pat. Thank you for that segue. So hello again. And as now that we've just heard Pat go over all the main subject areas of a commercial insurance policy, we're ready to talk about what happens when you need to use your insurance coverage because something happened. So whether you work from home or you go to an office or you're on the road, there's situations that could happen to any of those types of businesses, which can result in you having something to claim under your insurance policy. So let's start just by taking an overview, a look at the general claims process, and then just some of the basics and the info that people like me as an adjuster would ask you as someone making a claim would to get that claim started. So the first step is here, and yes, we're on the right slide. Thanks, Pat. So step 1 here: gather information and report the claim. It does sound pretty straightforward, and it really is. as straightforward as it sounds. We want to know the W5H of what happened. And so who's involved, when, where, and all that. And then as well, any names of other people involved. And then if we think about that's done, you've got all that information and you've opened up a claim file. Sometimes you talk to sort of a frontline staff member to get it going, and then they'll take all the information you have at the time, which is fine. You don't need to have everything in the first go. And then they will open the claim, send it to get assigned to a particular adjuster, and then at that point, we'd be ready to call you. So this is our first contact phone call, and this is where I might ask you for more information after we've looked over together what you've compiled so far. And so we'll target anything that we need some more details, or we need names or phone numbers or anything like that. And then going on to step 3, this is me on my own back at the desk. You take all the information that we've talked about and compiled together, and now it's time to compare it to the wording of the policy. So if you have a liability incident, we pull up your liability coverage wordings and we just sort of compare how does the chain of events happen? Does that line up with the coverages under your policy? And if we are able to confirm coverage, then we move on to the next step, which is quantifying the claim. And so this is the part where we're getting into the nitty-gritty detail of costs. And it's not as onerous of a task as it might sound up front. It's where we would be asking you to give us some receipts or invoices for stuff you might have already replaced if you had some property damage or a theft claim. Any other kind of documentation that could either pinpoint a value of any of the lost or damaged property is where this is the point where we'd ask you for that. And in claims where your business is shut down, we might ask you for something like an income statement. Or, cut to the chase, we might even just say, what is your bookkeeper's contact information? And we can often work out a business interruption part of a claim directly with a bookkeeper or an accountant. And that's probably the part that takes the longest, is because we don't want to miss anything. We want to make sure that everything you're entitled to can get paid. And so sometimes we might need to ask you for 2 or 3 things to support one item, but it's all towards the same purpose, trying to get you guys paid for your loss. And then once we are ready to do that, we're now at the settling part of the whole process, which is generally the end of it, and it can take a number of different forms as far as how we get the money out. And so often, maybe the most basic example, we have theft of certain business property or equipment or tools from a job site. We've established the value, and then now we just make a lump sum payment directly to you for the cost that would cost you to replace these items. And then sometimes we would do it in a series of scheduled payments, especially if it was a business interruption type of claim where you're shut down for a few weeks, or worst case scenario, sometimes you're shut down for a few months. Those are the kind of things where we would do, and incremental payments, maybe every 2 weeks or every month, to make sure you're able to pay your staff. And for example, in a liability claim, that would be the last category. And that's usually where we're gonna pay the other insurance company directly. So we have some negotiations to get through, and then after all that's done, we've come up with sort of a bottom line settlement figure. And then the rest of the process is generally just between me as your adjuster and the other insurance company as the adjuster for the other side of the liability claim, someone who has suffered some kind of damages, and then that we work it out in the background amongst ourselves. And we can go to the next slide and talk about the scenarios here. And so one thing to mention before I go into the specifics here is you'll see coverages and a scenario for each of these next few slides here, which is just to talk about our main sort of business areas and what coverages we think a business might need, and scenarios that might happen that you would use those coverages. And you'll notice commercial general liability in just about all of them, or if I did it right, in all of them. And that's because, just like Pat said before, the commercial general liability policy is the foundation. Like, that's the most important part, and that's sort of the most bang for your buck, because you could lose a trailer full of tools and you're out a few $1,000s, take you maybe, who knows, a certain amount of time to get that back. But something like a liability claim, one injury just happens to your business once, slip and fall on the staircase up to your front door or on your walkway, that could just ruin your whole business all in one go. So I think between Pat and I, we've probably belabored this point quite a bit, but it's on purpose, because this liability coverage is the foundation. That's where the biggest problem can happen. So that's where you get the most out of an insurance policy. And not just injury, but it could be something as small as what we have here in scenario number 1. So thinking of operating a hair salon, this could be, renting a chair in a salon in a commercial district, or it could even be out of your home. People still might have a home-based business with a salon type setup in a spare room, for example. And so again, the commercial general liability coverage, always important. But adding on to that, we would say that the commercial building contents and stock coverage is another key foundation. If you are renting space, or if you have any equipment, inventory, advertising materials, anything at all, any property that the business owns, and you don't want to pay for it yourself if it gets lost or stolen or damaged, then that's what this coverage comes in to help you for. So it says commercial building, that's the premises, or as a tenant, you don't own the premises, but maybe you've done some additions, renovations, or changes, new floor, or even you've upgraded the paint. Contractor grade base paint was what it looked like when you got there, but now you've made it your own. The landlord's insurance policy would not pay for any of that you've done on your own. So that's why the commercial building coverage comes in. And then contents and stock, that's the rest of the business property. Contents would just be equipment, office supplies, furniture, computers, anything like that. And then stock is twofold. It's inventory, and it's also advertising materials and promotional materials as well. And we've put loss of income here because that's a separate coverage. And I wanted to stress that point, because one of the misconceptions that I notice talking about insurance with anybody who's not an insurance business professional is that many times I've heard it that it's assumed this type of coverage where you're shut down and we're paying for your loss of revenue, or lost profits, I should say, is part of the other coverages. And it isn't. That's a separate thing that you would need to purchase in addition to either the liability or the property coverages. So just wanted to draw attention to that to make sure it's not missed by anybody. And then finally, put crime on there. Again, under the commercial building contents and stock, there is a limited bit of coverage for theft. And especially when we're talking about actual money, like cash in hand, your bills, your coins, your receipts, valuable papers that show your debt, your ownership, your stocks, anything that's kind of like a financial instrument either. So money or money-like items. That's not covered under contents and stock, because it isn't contents or stock. It's a separate kind of thing. And so you need the crime coverage to pay for that. And that crime coverage goes pretty far in what it can do. It's either robbery, burglary, or even an inside job. If it was something like embezzlement, that's where you would want the crime coverage, because those problems aren't covered under the other ones. So say, for example, here we've got a couple scenarios: slip and fall because of hair on the floor in a hair salon. You hadn't swept it up soon enough. So that's a bodily injury type liability claim. And then on the flip side of it, say you're dyeing a customer's hair and you spill the dye on something. This customer's brought in their nice Gucci purse, and now it's all stained with blue hair dye. And so that's the other side of the liability coverage, the property damage. And here's where I would come in to talk to you, talk to the other person's adjuster if they decide to open up an insurance claim, or talk to them directly if they're not going to open their own claim. And we work out an actual cash value quantification for that handbag. And then we're able to send a settlement directly to the person who owned it. We can flip to the next one, Pat. All right. Again, nothing new here. Commercial general liability, commercial building contents and stock. Those are just sort of general basic coverages that most businesses could need. But in this case, talking about a contractor, and with our focus being small business, these are independent tradespeople usually, or contractors who have a smaller size operation. And this is where the other kind of property insurance comes in. And so you see the word floater there twice, and that is a real insurance jargon word. It's this particular type of policy where it follows you wherever you go. And the reason for that is the basic property coverage, commercial building contents and stock, that is at one location only, your business premises that is stated in your insurance policy. That could be your home, or it could be a commercial building anywhere, or a place where you rent, where you lease space in a bigger commercial building. And so with that coverage, you wouldn't be covered if, say, for example, you had a toolbox and, you know, it's got a couple $1,000s worth of tools, so it's worth insuring and making a claim for, and it gets stolen from a job site somewhere off premises. Then you would need the tool and equipment floater. And the other one that we've listed there, the installation floater, is more focused on building supplies. So say you're working on you might be a carpenter or a carpenter contractor. You've brought in a bunch of different tradespeople, and you're building an addition on the back end of a house. And this is going to require, you know, building the structure itself, plumbing work, electrical work, and these different tradespeople have left their bulk building supplies, say, just in the backyard of this house. And you've secured it as best you can, maybe with a temporary portable trailer or shed, but it gets broken into, and, you know, $5,000 worth of drywall gets stolen, for example. That's when you would need the installation floater, because it's not contents or stock or tools or equipment. So it's got to be insured somehow. And so specifically it goes under the installation floater. And just to quickly look at the scenario, we talked about the first one, but that second one there, nail through a pipe in the wall causing a flood or water damage throughout someone's house or condo or other commercial space. That's, again, going back to the commercial general liability coverage. And I chose that example because I probably handle at least half a dozen claims, like minimum, per year, specifically for either a nail or a screw through a pipe that someone didn't know was there, and now water damage in a customer's house. Yeah, surprisingly common. So good thing to have your commercial general liability coverage to help you out with. And Pat, next one, please. Thank you. And then here we've seen a few of these types of businesses come our way, and so we thought it was a unique one, but it might be a growing type. So we've included it in our list here. This is a good example of where you might have a home office because you don't really need much equipment. You don't need a big space. You just need somewhere to do your paperwork and maybe communicate with your clients, emails and phone calls and such. So you can have your own office in your own house. And under that, we would still say you might need a contents and stock policy because, for example, if you only use your desk and chair, other kind of office furniture like that for your work, it wouldn't be insured under your home insurance. Or even if it is, there's generally going to be a limit, a few $1,000s for business property under a home insurance package. And so you might have a desk, chair, computer, printer, add up to, you know, it could be $10,000 right there. So you definitely want to have a contents and stock coverage, even if you're working from home. But we've also added on another floater, the electronic equipment and laptops floater, and that's a newish kind of coverage. As I've been doing claims and within that doing commercial claims for most of the time now, since about 2009 I started, and there wasn't a specific coverage like this back then. So it's kind of neat to see how the industry evolves. This electronic equipment and laptops folder is specifically for that. If you brought a tablet or a laptop or any type of electronic equipment like that to a job site. So say, for example, you bring your tablet to show a client a mock-up of what it might look like after you've done your organizing work and rearranged and built different closets or shelves or storage at a client's house, and you're showing them what it would look like. And then you drop your very fancy MacBook Pro or 12-inch iPad on the ground and it cracks. And it's just because electronic equipment like that didn't neatly fall into the equipment contents or stock categories. So that whole new coverage was created for it. And so, for example, taking a look at those scenarios, we've just talked about the second one of your own property damage when you're off-site. But same thing like we said before. Say you cause damage to your client's property. You're organizing, you're showing them how to tidy up, and your elbow comes in contact with some high-priced art on the shelf, and you knock it over and it cracks, and now you got to replace it. That goes back to your liability coverage. But say you're back at home now, and you've insured everything that you need to insure. You've got the equipment, contents, and stock coverage, and you've got a power surge that destroys your office equipment. So right there you go. Minus your deductible, we'd be able to pay you for the current purchase price of the electronics by matching the specs that you had before. Even if it was 5 years old, we would just look at what it was and make sure that you're getting something equally powerful that you had before. Okay, next slide, Pat. Thank you. All right. So this is the last of our scenarios here. And that's just, we have definitely seen many come our way through different applications for insurance for customers who are landlords. And again, the commercial general liability policy is the core foundation and will definitely be a helpful coverage in this kind of business. But in addition to the regular commercial building contents and stock coverage, we've added rental income. And then on top of that, there are specific to condo or strata type properties, these extra coverages down there. So if any of you here already live in a condo, you might have heard about assessments or deductible chargebacks and the levies. There's different names for it, but it's when the strata corporation incurs costs that they think an individual unit owner should be responsible for, and they'll charge it back to you through your strata fee account. And so the coverages under home insurance as a strata homeowner are kind of mirrored here, where we've got the liability and the property extensions. And so if you are getting a chargeback because, say, for example, the unit you own as a landlord occupied by tenants, but you're still the owner, you are the one that would be primarily responsible for any damage, even if it was caused by your tenant. So taking a look at the scenario, say your tenant overflows a bathtub, water damage to a few units below, the strata gets involved, they've sent in the contractors to dry and clean everything, and now they've got this invoice from one of these restoration contractors, and they charge it back. All they know is the standard process is to charge it back to the owner of the unit. So you'll get that, and then you and I would work together to prove that it was the tenant who was legally liable for it, and transfer that cost to the tenant. But there's certain cases where we can't. For example, say it was just a burst pipe that is only for the specific service of your unit, and that leaks. There's nobody else involved, and so you get stuck with the bill just by the simple fact that you're the owner of the unit. Even if you don't occupy it, you're still responsible for it. So that's where we come in with the property extension endorsement. And similar on the liability side. If it was determined that you're the only one responsible, we wouldn't be able to pay it if we didn't have these two coverages added on to a condominium or a townhouse, any type of strata. And then the same thing to quickly talk about improvements or betterments. That's where we would stop, because then the tenant would actually be responsible for that if the tenant had made any changes to the unit during their occupancy. All right, Pat, we can move on. And so here, just a quick wrap up, some tips and tricks about how to get through the claims process. And I've started with what you could do before a claim, before any problem happens that you might need to use your insurance for, you can get ready. You can get certain things prepared in the background. And so, for example, as soon as you've got your insurance policy coverage bound and confirmed, and you now have it, you own an insurance policy, I would always suggest take a photo of everything that you've got insurance for. So if you're a contractor and you've got a trailer full of tools, just take a shot of the outside of the trailer and open it up and take a good shot, maybe a couple, to show what's on the inside. Because that way, um, say a claim happens, you've had your insurance for 5 years, and you do this kind of picture once a year, then we can see the growth of your company, the change in your tools, the increase in the amount of tools that you have. And the most important part of it is it's just so hard to remember when you're in that state that something's happened, your trailer's stolen, or there's been a fire and everything's just burnt or melted to an indistinguishable lump. It's so hard to try and piece it back together what you've lost. And so having a photo just sort of cuts through that whole mess. The next step I've wrote down here is to write down all the details, even draw a quick diagram if it was related to to a car accident. That's a very common suggestion. And to take photos right away, more than you think you need, just to capture the scene and all the people involved, when, who, where, all the full W5H, as close to when it happened as possible. Because even a day later, when you're in a stressful situation, if this has never happened to you before, and now you're dealing with this kind of loss or damage, it's really hard to remember the specific details. A lot of psychological studies have gone on about recollection when you're a witness or when you're one of the involved parties, and it's amazing how the accuracy and the retention of the details drops day by day to a very minimal amount after just a short few days. And then the next idea that we have here is to keep copies of documentation. So anything that you don't want to pay for that you think we might need you might need to prove when we have an insurance claim, just I always going back to it nowadays with cameras and phones and how easy it is. Just take a photo and store it in a folder on your hard drive that you hope to never need, but it's always there in case you do have to show supporting documentation to prove the values or to prove what you had as like proof of ownership in a claim situation. And that can even be ledgers for your annual income, sort of summary sheets that give a snapshot. So that way we're ready to go if you had a business interruption claim. And same thing for the last tip there. It's sort of the first one here, keep documentation and copies of everything, is before a claim happens, just for your own records, but also for us if we need it. And then after a claim happens, if you're reporting any business interruption, any property loss, and you've started to replace stuff, then keep those receipts, please. It helps us get to the bottom of the claim and get you your money faster. And that's about it for the process tips. Pat, my part's done. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Yeah, like I said, hopefully you never have to go through a claim and suffer a peril. But like I said, it's good to know you have someone like BCA there to back you up. So yeah, BCA Small Business, we provide custom coverage online and support with expert help that you need. So yeah, go onto the website and explore what we have there at bca.com, and under small business, you can do a quote yourself, or if it's a little bit more complicated, you can just have a live chat there, or one of our good people there will reach out and help you through that process. And if you're doing that, there's a promo code that we have for you. It's BCAA 50, and that gives you $50 off your policy if you go move forward with it. So yeah, every little bit helps. And of course, if you're a BCA member, you're automatically going to save up to 10%. And if you're not, here's the pitch. So typically the savings alone on a policy will pay for your BCA membership. And they start from $40 and they go up, right? So if you don't need all the auto service, because you may have ICBC Roadstar or something like that, then you can get a Go membership, and you still get up to 10% off. And it's got a whole myriad of savings that you can have. You get 3 cents off per liter at Shell, and if you're a Canuck fan, 30% off, and save on hotels. So there's a whole lot of stuff you can save. And like I said, the membership, the savings alone on your off your quote will usually pay for your membership. So yeah, explore that. Yeah, so thank you. And we're going to open up for any questions that you have. And yeah, hopefully we can help you out with some scenarios. So open up to you guys.
I think there are no questions on the chat. And thank you, Patrick and Dan, for being with us today and sharing this important information for our business owners. We will be sending you the recording and the facilitator's contact information after this session. Many more of these types of this session are coming up, so please be sure to check our website at businessinsurrey.com. Make it a great business afternoon. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you very much.
everyone.
And don't forget that this go on there and get that $5,000 for your business. Enter that draw as well. All right. Have a good day, everyone.